DULCET, Book 2 of the Senses Novels, by K. M. All. Childhood. Unlike some of the others, I do not remember my birth. The first memory I have is of the music. It filled my little body, sometimes loudly, sometimes softly. At the time, I did not know why or what caused the differences. My mum and dad would sign that even as a baby, I was always swaying. You caught that, did you? Yes, I said sign. If you look closely, if I move my hair out of the way, you will see that the sides of my head are perfectly smooth. I was born without ears. If you could see inside, you would know that I was born without the entire structure that supports hearing. I have no ear canals, no eardrums, no tympanum, no bonelet, nothing. My da used to say that my head was solid through and through. That was my da, always teasing me. Nonetheless, I could always hear the music. That goes as far back as I can remember. My folks were from Ireland. I was born in a small hospital on the south side of Chicago, almost 1 year to the day after they arrived in the Windy City. My da worked for his older brother in construction and was making decent money at it. Mum would say that for the first time in her life she was a woman of leisure. She would laugh at that. She meant that she wasn't taking in wash like she used to back in their old hometown. How I wish that I could see her laugh again. Being deaf, I have been signing since I was 3 years old, but I didn't laugh for the first time until I was much older. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. The first clear memories that I have, aside from the music, are from when I was about 2. My mum and dad were sitting at a table with some picture books. They were making funny shapes with their hands. The music was soft in my body that day. I was fascinated by what they were doing and toddled over. I pulled one of the books down off the table, and it landed on the floor with the picture side up. I got down on my chubby little knees next to the book and stared at the pictures. It was a large grey animal with a hose on its face. There were a series of photos of a lady who was making funny shapes with her hands. I tried to copy those pictures and somehow instinctively knew that they were supposed to be followed from left to right. I did it a few times and then touched the image of the animal on the page. Something in me knew that I had just said the word for elephant. My folks had stopped what they were doing and were looking at me as I worked through this. I saw their mouths moving rapidly and their arms and hands were going every which way. The next thing I knew, Da had me and was tossing me up and catching me. I could see he was laughing. The next day, Mum bundled me up and took me to a place filled with a bad smell and a lot of animals. There, in a large open space, was a real live elephant. I signed at him and signed at him, but it wouldn't sign back. The music, though, did get louder. In fact, it got very loud. My body was shaking as I signed harder and harder. Then something happened. I opened my mouth, and all the animals stopped and looked up. Deaf people can make noises. They just don't usually mean anything if the individual has been deaf since birth. Many people who have been deaf since they were born just give up at an early age and stop making noise altogether. This is why people think they are dumb as well. I couldn't feel anything in my throat or mouth, but there was a note, a single note. I didn't know at the time, but it was the first note of my song. The music was unbelievably loud, and it was going up and down. I could see the mouth on every one of the animals that I was looking at was open. People had their hands over their ears. Mum told me later that the animals began to let loose with their loudest noise at the same instant. That isn't exactly accurate, though. Most of the reptiles weren't doing anything unusual. Neither were any of the insects. It seemed that only the mammals and marsupials were bellowing at the top of their lungs. It startled me when Mum dropped her purse and put her hands over her ears. I closed my mouth and the note stopped. When the note stopped, the music fell in both tone and intensity. At that point, the animals began to quiet down again, and people were taking their hands away from their ears. I want to make it very clear that I was not speaking with the animals. There was no communication going on, at least not on my end. The animals were reacting to something that I had done, but what that was I had no idea at the time. All I knew was that there was a single clear note now fading against the background of the music. I wanted to try again, but knew even at that age that it would cause more chaos. I had already connected the note with my mum throwing her hands over her ears. She would tell me much later that there was no audible sound, but that it felt like her ears were going to explode right off of her head. She tried to make a joke of it, how she would look just like me if that happened. I didn't think it was funny. I felt sad most of my life, because I was so different.